One person drops the glove, the other person tries to pin it to the board. Okay? The glove will drop at a given speed because gravity is constant. You stand on guard and you point at the glove. Stare at the glove. When it begins to move, you extend. The point is aimed at the glove all the time, and if you're in the proper distance and you do it properly, you should pin it to the board. You pin it to the board, don't just go poke. Hold it there, then you've done it. Your partner who is dropping for you will appreciate it if you don't drop it every time, so they have to go like this after every repetition. So if it's pinned there, and then the dropper takes it away, and then you get back on guard again. Okay, coach, want to give it a shot? Start where it says 1, or 0 actually. Yeah.
Do I give him any warning or just drop it?
Well, you stand still, do nothing, then release it. Okay? No.
Oop, close.
Okay, the trick is you track the glove as you extend. You're not going to pin it in place for where it used to be. So your thumb is going to make the touch, and if you raise your hand against a dropping object, you're probably going to miss it. Track it down.
Harder than it looks.
Track it down. That's more like it. Takes a while to get used to it. But no tension, it's not important to hit it hard, just get there. That was better. You were in contact with it. Now, if your distance is a little bit off, it's going to be on the floor before you go close enough. You can move in a little bit more. Yeah. Uh-huh. You were there in time, but just a little bit offline. Aha! See? For those of you who think it's impossible, it isn't. Okay, it takes a little while to get used to it. Okay, that's good.
Last one.
Aha! Insight.
All right.
Getting that front foot off the floor when you're doing a short lunge, it has to be the first thing you do, so when you hit the thing, you don't bounce back.
Right.
If your foot's not off the floor, you will bounce back because the muscles don't want to stretch fast enough.
Oh, it's my turn now? Oh, why not?
You drop for him?
Sure.
Okay. Now, the person dropping needs a mask because
So you said at 1?
start at 0 and hold the center of the glove. No, here.
Oh, okay. Like
You want it to drop straight. Now, there are ways to it. You can speed up the execution by the person who's trying to hit it. One of the things, if you let it go by going, then that's what triggers the person to go for the glove. If you just do this, the movement is what triggers the person to go for the glove. Now, if you want to get somebody used to the action, you can do a little flare like that as you let go. Go ahead. Okay, that's doing it the classic way. This can be done with foils or done with epées. I've never seen it done with sabers yet. Okay. You want to be tracking it as you come forward. So the point goes where the glove goes, and when you finally get to where it is, you pin it. Okay. Now your body moved and your arm hadn't even begun to move yet. You start with the point. Get your foot in the air as soon as you can. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Now, when you start out on this exercise, you don't do it with a lunge. That's harder with the lunge. You just do it with the leg flexion in place. Try it that way. You don't need the lunge. Leave your foot on the floor. Just relax your front leg and flex into it.
So it's kind of...
Exactly.
Push with your thumb too, that helps a little bit. Yeah.
It's bad. A little bigger glove and you'd have hit it. Aha.
Aha. Last one?
Okay. Now, when you flex into your front leg, there's a tendency for it to rebound from that stretch, and that takes your point back away from the target. You want to flex into it, into the hit. If this leg is over here, you can't do this at all. This has to move in a vertical plane where the glove is and where the weapon is. Your thigh and your front foot all have to be in that one vertical plane. Now, if your legs stay straight, the glove's going to be gone before you're ready to hit anything. Aha. Now, that's a body bend and a little bit of a knee bend, but it got you started. Aha. Both eyes forward now. You're looking at a one eye and one ear. Good. Now you've got 3 in a row from the 0. When the person gets 3 in a row, then you move to the next level down. So they have to do it a little bit better, not necessarily faster, better. And then you also have to be more and more out of your own way by getting the leg. You don't want this leg bouncing you back. You want to flex into it and support the weapon with the muscles. Okay. Aha. Good. You don't get extra credit for impact, but sometimes that's going to happen. That's why you don't use your best glove. Good.
And that's why I got my spare blade too.
Pardon me?
That's why I'm using my spare blade right now.
I hope it's not a pre-calibrated epee tip, is it? Okay. Go down the next level.
We used to just re-roll on one.
Just go anyway. Maybe you bounced off your front leg that time. The lower you go, the more you have to flex into it without thinking about it. Just do it. No. Late start. And when your front leg gets tired, it will tend to recontract reflexively against the flexion. And that means you go, you don't mean to, but the muscle does that. And you don't count on the board to support your balance. The balance is independent. The weapon will support you somewhat. But if I weigh 175 pounds, and I'm leaning on this with all 175 pounds, but it's not a good idea. Just enough to hold it there is all you want. If you go to the full range of motion of the stretching of those muscles, and it doesn't do that, you're probably going to do a nosedive. So the idea for the muscle should be controlling your landing, but not limiting it. So you get into the muscle and then. Okay. And this has to stay straight ahead, because as soon as it's turned like this, you're going to be doing this, and the glove will be on the floor laughing at you. Aim at the glove the whole time, all the way. Now you're veering off a little bit to the right, and if you point your front foot a little bit more accurately, it won't happen. Then your foot hit the floor before you hit the glove. Aim up at the glove. Now, when you get out where you're missing consistently, then that's as far as you're going to go. That's where you are. Eventually, you get better at it, and then you get all the way down. Then you move back to short lunge distance and start over. But you take turns, so there's a rest period. You're standing here aimed at the glove, and as you go forward, the point goes down from the thumb, and wherever it hits, the glove should be hanging on the end of it. But you don't stop your movement forward with your leg muscles before the hit, because it's a good way not to hit. So you land on your point, and the foot is, if you're just standing there, there's no landing involved. If you're making short lunge, there is a landing involved, but you want to be touching the glove before your foot hits the floor, a tiny fraction of a second sooner. Because as soon as your foot hits the floor, there's a little bit of a bounce back, and it decelerates the weapon. Which is another one of those reasons why you keep your foot in the air when you're making lunges. It's an exercise for your hand-eye coordination, and most particularly, see-do. The glove is moving and you touch it with a little bit of penetration. You don't have to come out the back of the glove or about the back of the board. You know, pin it in place. Once you've pinned it in place and the person goes to take it from you, you release it. You just hold it there with your point. So you hit it, and that's the end of the thrust. You don't want to come out the other side of anything. So, and the bending of your lead leg puts the brakes on. The weapon does not put the brakes on. You hit and the foot hits and puts the brakes on. There are all kinds of things that are plyometric exercises, but landing a lunge is one of the biggest ones going. And that's why fencers' legs are among the most powerful of anybody. And it's also the reason why fencers' legs are asymmetrical. Having more than one of these or two of these in a cell is a good idea, because then you don't have to stand and watch. But right now I think standing and watching is useful. If you haven't done this yet, we're going to have some loose time where you can do things, and find a partner and do it. Hold your hand up like this. This is my point, okay? That's a glove.
So it drops. Right.
Mm-hmm. So the glove drops in a straight line. The point moves in an arc, which intersects the vertical surface. Okay? But you don't want to be here, and you don't want to be here. You want to be here. So,
Something comfortable.
well, yeah, you float the weapon. You float your arm. Okay. And just so we're talking about the same thing, an extension of the arm does not take place from the triceps. It takes place from the deltoid. Right? Mm-hmm. If you lock this up, it goes clank and doesn't go anywhere. And also by locking up the triceps, you lose sensitivity because it blocks the nerve feedback. Some people teach when you make a thrust, you're supposed to raise your guard. This tells you why you shouldn't. If you can go in a straight line and it ain't parrying, go in a straight line. If the glove starts parrying, you've been drinking too much. And I'm not going to say what, but it's obviously too much. Okay, there's a lot of physical training things here, and hand-eye coordination, and relaxation of muscles as opposed to contraction of muscles, or they call it eccentric or eccentric contraction, is where the muscle absorbs energy as opposed to generating it. And that's the one where you really develop the muscles. If you're a real hot shot and you get good at this, you can also change sides, but mainly you want to use your dominant side, because your body should not be symmetrical for fencing. So the idea is to get the moving mass and accelerate it in midair. And it's the analogy I always like a three-stage rocket launcher. You get off the ground with the big engines. On the way, you develop velocity, and then you enter orbit with the smallest one. And that's pretty much what a lunge should be. Now, don't look at the floor. Look at your opponent. Okay? That's good. That's fine. Now, that ultimate acceleration was exactly right. The deceleration left you in a good balance, because now what you can do from that is you can land that lunge, pick up your toe, and be right back again like a yo-yo coming up the string.
Right.
Show me. No, stiff.
Stiff. Where?
Everywhere.
Don't try hard, just do it.
Put me on the spot.
No, it's all right. Land the lunge, a little bit more bounce on the end of it.
Bounce where?
on the end of your lunge. See how easy that is? He's got the muscles to do that. It's a reflexive recontraction that the stretch of the muscle generates. If you don't fight it, you use that to generate the return to guard. As the muscle recontracts reflexively. Don't fight it. You're loose, it goes back, boom, boom. Now, when you're doing a lot of these exercises and you start to get tired, don't force it. We're in the middle of the summer and people are in some kind of condition, but not peak condition. It's not the season to be in peak condition. So don't be a hero. Do what works for you, get the understanding of it, and little by little you take some of this stuff back with you and say, oh, I know how to do that exercise. Okay, everybody take a break. Just relax. Think about what you want to talk about next, and we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll move along. If you find yourself recovering from the lunge by pulling with your foot and then trying to go back, it's hopeless. You have to get your body mass in motion. When it's in motion, it's easy to pull back into position. That comes from here, the lead leg. The lead leg is what starts you back. Your glutes, your hams, your quads, tibialis, the whole game. Medialis, all of them, they're Greek names, or Latin. But they come into play sequentially. So when you bounce, you get the reflexive recontraction. Now your body mass is moving up and back a little. You accelerate it back by the extension of the lead leg. And now, when I said stay in the air and then put it down, so you get back over your back foot, and then you put your weight down between. It's an exaggeration to do it that way, but a lot of exaggerations are intentional. Sometimes there are remedial exaggerations, and sometimes there are ways of embedding the execution in an exaggerated manner, but it makes you more aware of what you're doing. Now, if I was trying to do an attack and recover so I can make a counter riposte, I'd land it, get back, and go bang, bang. About the same time my lead foot hits the floor. Okay. Boom, boom. I get right back. All the stuff we're just doing slowly happens quickly. And it doesn't seem to be separated into step, 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 step. But give or take a dime, it is done in that sequence. The problem you'll see in a lot of fencers, even good fencers, is they make a lunge and they bring the back foot up and they go for a walk back in both feet to get back to distance. And I can't think of anything that's more useless than that. I saw a young man lose the last touch in a fence-off for a gold medal in the World Championships by he allowed himself to be pushed into the end area of the strip. He made a lunge and recovered back and was going for a walk instead of a recovery to balance. And as he was going for that, the opponent stepped into distance. And when he finished that movement, he took a little step forward. He made a 1-2 in tempo. The Russian did. And the guy was handing that because the recovery from the lunge was inefficient and had extra steps. And then he tried to go for a little walk forward, and he walked right into a 1-2 in tempo. Game, set, and match. That was a labelle touch for the gold medal. Bang. So be able to recover and move, balance, control the movement. If you start doing fix-it steps, you create openings for opponents. I mean, you got to fix it. You got to fix it. But you try to do things smoothly enough that you don't have to do remedial actions in froz. If the distance opens up and you can readjust your stance when there's nobody this close, then okay. But you try to minimize that. If you finish every action preparing the next action, every action should end preparing the next, even if you don't know what it is. You need to be ready after something is over so that whatever happens, you're ready for it. Which is why we don't recover from the lunge by walking back out of the lunge or by dragging the back foot up and then having to open the distance after the recovery. And the recovery comes from the lead leg, so that the back foot becomes a reference point for your body. And then you put your front foot down and you can walk back from there. The walk, lunge, and recovery is an exercise that I recommend completely. You just walk, 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 reach out, step out, lunge, recover, walk backwards. Are you visualizing this okay? Okay. That gives you the smoothness without the stiffness and without the anxiety or the excess eagerness. You can go out to here and you go back to there and then you go walk backwards. Then you walk forwards and you reach out with the lunge and you land the lunge and you come back and you walk backwards. The sequencing of the muscles and the transfer of the weight, very natural, no anxiety, and it's smooth. And the fact that it's smooth makes it quicker than if you struggle with it. Because the people who struggle with it wind up recovering to the middle and they still have work to do. This exercise you recover to the rear and you're on balance right away. Anterior deltoid. Yeah, that muscle is what makes this happen. It raises the upper arm. If you coordinate the raising of the upper arm with the extension forward, the muscles all around here are involved in that. But if people go clank, number one, you can't feel your weapon anymore, and number two, it doesn't go nearly as far or as soon. So if you're doing this exercise and you're out there, this is still loose. You complete the extension and there's no tension. You should be able to flop it around like this at the end of an extension. That way it doesn't interfere with the contraction of the arm as well. If you lock your elbow, number one, you can't feel as well, and number two, it's hard to take it back. You have to undo a motion. That takes time. Even if a fraction of a second is pretty critical. And you go, bing, I want this to come back. I can go bang. That's an exaggeration, but not by much. Locking the arm, bad move. Now, there's another exercise I want to do against a wall target, and we're not going to do it now because we're running over into lunchtime. I don't see any lunch. I guess we can talk. And that's an exercise against the wall, doing this. And there are different ways to do that so that you train the muscles about how much is enough. You're patterning the thrust, and you're also patterning the limit of the thrust. So the muscles that make the thrust are training and getting the feel of the feedback. Just flexing the blade, keeping the point on the target, never letting it straighten out. You don't bend it by much, you bend it a little, and you never take it off the target. You always keep a little bit of bend in it. We'll do some of that. We don't have to do it now. But I want to remember to do that this afternoon because it's a really important exercise. It can be done different distances and different stances. A neutral on guard, or a forward balance on guard, or even the end of a lunge. And the one time that came in handy, I said, Maestro Cesar said to me, says, you must learn this exercise. You're too stiff. Someday you'll kill somebody with that épée. Well, probably a bit of an exaggeration. But if you lock out the arm and it's under somebody's arm and you're stiff, you can go through the jacket, through whatever's there and right into the man. It's not, and the blade won't even bend. I mean, it won't even break. If your arm is up, the blade won't break. If it breaks, worse, so much the worse. And this is flexing it against the target, which we'll get into. Came in handy one time. I had a guy that was fleshing and running into me in a competition, and I asked the referee to warn him. Nah, it's nothing. So we got on guard again. He plowed into me again. And I said, are you going to warn him now? And he says, no. And I walked over and I said, I'm warning you. Then we got on guard. He did it one more time. Except this time, my arm was out. And to my eternal shame, my elbow was locked. Went through his jacket, along here, scratched him. And I said, what might have happened? But my arm buckled right before it could go beyond the jacket. It went through the jacket, and that was as far as it went. That exercise saved him. I'm very happy it did. Because sometimes you lose it. I'm not proud of that, but I'm proud of the fact that I was trained, and that training avoided a disaster. Another thing is when you get annoyed with somebody, beat them on the score sheet. Yeah, it's one of those things one learns. Oh, and I did, by the way. But I was appalled at what I had nearly done. Two people that are rather fleet of foot, please. You take an end. You take an end. Move back to. Now you're going to keep the hand the same distance from your body throughout the exercise. You're not going to reach in or pull back. But what you're going to do is one person's going to lead, one person's going to follow. And the whole idea is you're going to do retreats, advances, and mix and match. And the follower has to make sure that the rope doesn't change its arc. Doesn't get straightened down, doesn't sag. Okay? So you're the leader first. Not fast, just move.
Should I also maybe join a lunge or something at some point?
No, not yet. You have to see it. By the time you feel a pull, it's late. Okay, stop, relax. Now the other person leads. Okay, stop. Thank you. Now, can you make this more complicated? Sure. Can you make it faster? Sure. You're not trying to trap the opponent, but just to mix cues. And I was talking a lunch about a couple of fencers on the Penn team. Remember Jimmy Amashita and Young Son? And they just loved this exercise. So they would go up and down the floor. And they both lived on their footwork. Jimmy had been a foil fencer, and he wound up going into saber. He was about 5'0" tall. And Young Son was about 5'8". He had been a soccer player before. So he had some idea of conditioning, and he had some musculature. And they would just go up and down the floor. Nothing else to do. They got a rope and they'd go to work. Okay. So this exercise is a partner exercise, obviously, for people that are looking for a workout as part of other stuff. It's movement detection and spontaneous response. It's train things to do, but when to do, what to do. It can be several steps this way or a couple this way and then change direction. And the person who is following has to adapt right now. I just wanted to introduce that and encourage people to do it. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I want people to see it and understand what it is. If, when we get a break, if you feel like grabbing a partner and grabbing a rope, then by all means do that. This is the starting position. Okay? That's number one. Okay? Number two would be from here. Notice the difference? Now, notice the blade never comes fully straight. It never comes off the target. Things have to move. Things have to not move. When I moved to change the distance, then I took a new position and didn't change it during the exercise. This kept going back and forth, bending the blade so that it bent about like that, and straightened so it didn't come off the target. You never took it off the target, right? So it would go, observe. This is from a half extension to full extension. Notice the legs are doing nothing. Well, actually, they're doing quite a bit. They're responding to the pressure backward by balancing it out with a corresponding pressure forward spontaneously. The game is don't move backwards. The hand wants me to move backwards, and my leg said no. So they were working, but you don't see a lot of action by the legs, but they're working. Does that make sense? My God, I even explain better than I even do it. Okay, so it can be done with a foil. It can be done with an épée. This thing in my hand happens to be an épée. This is a mistake. This is a mistake. This is about right. I can move in a little closer so that my elbow still stays tucked in, and this movement back and forth goes. The weapon never leaves the target, and you don't push so hard that you snap it off. Because, I mean, if it's yours and you pay for it, you know better. This looks like it's very uncomplicated. This is more complicated. Not a lot. It's the same exercise. But you notice there's not much play here. If I get back to here, my weight is forward on the front leg. I can walk in and do it from here. I can walk back to there and do it over here. Okay? Now, the only way to know what that actually does is to grab a weapon and grab a target and get started. Don't let your hand rise up. Straight in.
I wonder if it's this easy while I'm on pencil.
Constant hand level. Don't let it rise up.
More like that.
That's about right. Yep, the guard should stay at the same level throughout.
Move it back and forth.
Yeah. Now, don't let it come all the way back. You want the blade to stay bent. And the hand does not go up and down. It goes forward and backward. Keep your legs under you. Bent knees. The wrist stays pretty straight. When you're hitting the target, you don't want to be doing ups and downs. Doesn't have to be done fast. It just has to be done correctly. You're too fast, too fast. Slow it down. Get down into your knees a little bit. Yeah.
When I go back.
Well, same. You want to stay down on your knees. So you got your body more over your front foot, but that's exactly correct.
So a little resistance throughout, never relax it completely. So
Correct.
Keep it a little bit here.
Yes. The guard stays the same level all the time.
Should I be leaning in a little as I go?
Well, use your arm first. If you're farther away, you'll have to do a lean, and then your base is farther in. You don't do a lot from your legs in terms of movement. Yes. Mm-hmm. Keep a firm grip. Yeah, that's the idea. Yep. Let's figure out what the exercise is accomplishing. The idea is multifold. One is to isolate the muscles that make extensions. Number two is also to isolate and feel the articulations in the wrist at compensation for what the weapon wants to do in response to what you're doing. The back fingers firm up as you bend the blade more. Firm, 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 firm. You never quite loosen them up and up, otherwise the blade makes you go back. So you have to maintain a somewhat firm grip, but firmer on when you increase the pressure. You're teaching the legs to counter the force that's coming back at you from the target. So the legs, back leg in particular, has to absorb that and prevent it from moving you. So you're teaching this leg to support the thrust. This leg, depending on the distance, is trying to add weight to the thrust just enough so that the body doesn't go backwards at all. You have enough weight going into that muscle, or the set of muscles really. Okay? And the other thing you are doing is you are teaching this whole extension system how much force is a good, safe force. Because most of you could snap the blade if you pushed it in far enough and hard enough, and that's not exactly a very good idea. So you want to feel the feedback from the spring to the muscles that are maintaining the thrust. You teach the muscles how much of is appropriate by managing it and doing a lot of reps. So you feel when you get out to here, you get to this, that's a touch. Down to here is idiocy, and you don't want to teach your arm idiocy. But there's a whole systematic cohesion in the legs, the balance, the eyes, the hand, the arm, the use of your weight. Okay? It's all a pattern. All this is a simple straight thrust. But so much is involved in doing it. And if you do it correctly, you probably don't even notice some of it. But I'm calling it to your attention because there are, as I say frequently, there are no trivial details, but there are details. The idea is the point tracks the heart of the ball, so that anytime you extend as far as the ball, you're hitting the middle of the ball. You just track it with your point, and you go out, continue to track it all the way, and when you get there, you're hitting it. You don't want to hit it so hard that you knock it out of kilter and it doesn't swing properly. You just want to just touch it. Make it move away from you, and that's it. About 100,000 or so of those, and after that you get pretty good at it. The golf ball is much harder.
What happened to 10,000?
Pardon me?
That needs more.
10,000 is the quitters.
I was referring to my entire career.
Oh.
I'm sure I had done it 100,000 times. It was part of a regular walk into the saddle and get loosened up and do some exercises. This was one. And the idea is to keep the shoulders level and keep the body from, because you don't want to go, you want the weapon to lead all the time. The point stays aimed from the fingertips. When you get to the ball, you hit it. Maybe you go through the heart of the ball. You don't poke it, you thrust through it. Shoulders down. Try not to raise your hand. You want to go right straight through. No triceps. Don't poke, thrust. Three words, look. Done it before, I can tell.
Yeah, I've done this before.
There are niceties to this. One is to have it swinging sideways, which means you have to do this, so that whenever it gets into your range, the point's already hitting it anyway. And the other thing is to walk in closer and hit it this way, and walk farther away and hit it. Maintaining aim through the heart of the ball at all times, so anytime it's within range, you're hitting it. And you don't hit it, you thrust through. You don't want to have this kind of activity when what you really want to be able to do is this, and flow your body into that extending weapon. You don't want to hit down, you want to hit through. So as you go forward, keep your shoulders level, there's action in their spine and your back, but you don't want it to be this, because now you have a down and an up, and it's too many variables confusing the movement. This goes straight through. My back compensates for it, right? The curvature of the spine, and I go back, right? And if you were to do the same thing with a straight lunge to the chest, the exact same thing happens. You go straight lunge here, shoulders stay level, and as you reach forward, your spine has to do certain accommodation to it. Okay? Okay. I'm lunging when it's sitting in a chair, but you see what I'm talking about? If I want to go farther in, I do this, at the displacing below, displacing below the target, and minimizing the time in the hitting zone. Yeah, I hear them talking about that in baseball a lot these days. About certain batters keep the barrel of the bat in the hitting zone longer. Well, they're more likely to contact the ball. And if you contact the ball with the barrel of the bat, chances are it's going to go someplace. But if you wind up doing boom or boom, the opportunity to actually score a hit is minimal. And yet some guys in the major leagues still think that's how to hit. And the ones who know how to keep the bat in the hitting zone get more hits. It's similar to that in this case. The point of the weapon goes through the ball, and that's a hitting zone. If you're reaching farther, then your upper body has to compensate so you don't wind up tipping your shoulders, and so it goes down and then it goes up. You want this to be level and smooth. If you get lower in your body, your hand would go a little higher, but it would stay moving level. Right?